Hello and welcome to Ballistic Advantage. My name is Clint and thank you guys for watching our LPK series. We're getting into the meat of it, right around the middle. Today we're going to go ahead and install the trigger and disconnect. So let's go ahead and do a checklist of parts that we're going to need for that. So let's go over here. We're ready to install the trigger. You will notice that in our enhanced LPK, it is nickel boron coated on the trigger and disconnect as well as the hammer. But right now we're going to install the trigger and go over these parts. You're going to need the actual trigger itself, the disconnect, which is the green spring, not to be mistaken with the bolt catch spring. And then you also need your actual disconnect, trigger spring, as well as trigger pin. Let's get started. So we have our nickel boron trigger here. A couple things we need to do before we actually install it. I'm going to take my disconnect spring, bigger side of the spring here, little corresponding hole in the trigger. I'm going to drop that in there. Pops in there. Make sure it's going to function. Perfect. Now we need the actual trigger spring installed. Now what you're going to see here is this is how it's going to go on. Okay? So the way I'm going to do that, so I'm just going to flip over one side and that side. And now we're ready to go. Simply going to place my disconnect, that slot in the spring, that's where that goes. And now we're going to drop it all in together. Okay, now that you're in, what you're going to want to do is use one hand to push it down to find where it needs to be. A lot of guys come through with a punch from one side, but with me, I feel like it's a little more comfortable just use my finger to push down and eyeball through this hole and see where it's got to go. So that's what I'm going to do now. So I'm going to take my trigger pin. Side without the notches is going to go in first. And once it gets through the first part of the trigger, it's stopping. Now we know we're hitting the disconnect. So now we need to fish that around and we get through there and now to the other side. Now you're flush, pull it a little bit, make sure it's functioning properly. And that's that. All right, so our trigger's in, disconnect's in, we're ready to go on that. So stay tuned next time. We're gonna go ahead and install the hammer. All right, thank you.